This is Trust Fund Benefactor Jared Silberkleit, and you are watching the Wrestling Nerd Broadcast.
You're watching DCTV. Now here's your host, the voice, Dave Canning. It's you, it's me, it's DCTV. It's you, it's me, it's DCTV. Let's start the show.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. It is you, it is me, it is RD and SMG, Spaceman George, live from the International Nerd Station. Ryan, of course, from the West Coast, me from here in beautiful New York. So yeah, we are back with the Wrestling Nerd Broadcast after being heinously accused last week by Harold and Ryan and George. Everyone just interrogating me, throwing a spotlight on me like I've done something wrong. And stop shaking your head, George. I've done nothing wrong.
Spaceman George begs to differ.
Well, listen. What's that, Ryan? You want to accuse me too?
I'm, I think, a pretty trusting guy. On the group chat, the Patreon group chat, everyone's tossing tidbits of information. It all adds up so far. Spaceman George is hacking to see that you've been looking into holograms. Actually, I want to see, is that really you? Can you hold up an L? I want to make sure that it's not a hologram. Can you hold it to your forehead real quick for me?
Nice try.
No, to your forehead. Okay, just make sure. Okay, I guess that's you this time.
I hold up the other part of the LI there for you, Chief. But no, listen, guys. George, you can just float out into space for all I care. Ryan, you can stay 3 hours behind me because you're never getting any closer to this crown, okay? And I said last week, after Harold and I extended hands like the mega powers uniting right before they turned on one another again, I shook Harold's hand in friendship and solidarity. But you know what else I did last week? I said that I had proof that when I was accused of being on the phone that dragged Nick out of that parking lot before he was fatally struck by a car that was not me, the driver, that I was on the phone with this week's guest. And that is why I'm going to show you exclusive one-on-one interview footage. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Please now enjoy my exclusive one-on-one interview with Trust Fund Benefactor Jared Silberkleit. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. I am here, the king of the nerds, Dave C. the Voice, with my proof of innocence that I did not run over former king of the nerds, Nick Carpenter. I earned this crown on my very own. As you saw right before Nick was tragically struck by a car as he got pulled out on a phone call, I too was on the phone. But that is because I was arranging a meeting with a trust fund benefactor, ladies and gentlemen. That is because the Wrestling Nerd Broadcast is now officially trust fund approved, because our guest this week, and my proof of innocence, from his palatial estate in Mar-a-Lago, the one, the only trust fund benefactor, Mr. Jared Silberkleit. Jared, thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
You're so very welcome. And I want to correct you. It is the climate-controlled trust fund estate in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. And yes, I am trust fund benefactor Jared Silberkleit. And yes, this podcast is officially trust fund approved.
That's what I like to hear right there. So, Jared, if you could please just confirm to the nerds out there that it was, in fact, you and I on the phone, and that I am 100% innocent of any wrongdoings against Nick.
Oh, it sure was. You and I, we had a lengthy phone conversation, in fact, talking about my rate, how you would be paying for it in installments at what we agreed was a very fair APR, that you have an appropriate amount of time to repay said debt to yours truly. But yes, you are not guilty of running anybody over with a beat up jalopy.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Yes, I'm going to have to redeem a lot of beer cans to afford this interview, but it is worth every nickel and dime that I'm going to redeem. So this is going to be great. So Jared Silberkleit, for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen, is arguably he is perfecting a lost art, in my opinion, and that is the managerial services in professional wrestling. So, Jared, tell me why a manager? Because 90% of the people want to be in the ring, and by the end of most of your matches, you do wind up in the ring. But just why a manager?
Well, I started out in pro wrestling as an announcer, a commentator, interviewer, and I thought that was kind of the route I wanted to pursue. I wanted to be kind of play-by-play guy was definitely an initial dream of mine, and I've gotten to do that. But over the years, eventually the opportunity came about to manage on a show, and because I had already been in the ring, I already enjoyed public speaking very much. And I got into wrestling more from the broadcast related aspects of it. But having the opportunity to cut my first promo was a different kind of energy. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. So it kind of seemed to click organically right away. And it was kind of off to the races from there. This is a little over 4 years ago. And I've just been having a blast in the role. I do, and I like kind of the limited physical involvement. The fact that I get to do just enough, and also the fact that I've had a couple novelty matches here and there, which is something that I'd like to continue doing to make it mean something, so that I'm not overexposed in ring wise. I was never really much of an athlete growing up, honestly. So the thought of being a full-time pro wrestler really never crossed my mind. I always enjoyed wrestling, but as far as like my own participation in it, the promo and the speaking aspect really just appealed more to me, and just getting to be a character. That's what I enjoy most, is just throwing 100% of my energy into the character. But that being said, I think that first of all, the limited amount of physicality compared to that of like a full-time wrestler, helps preserve the body. And B, I just think it makes it mean more when somebody does get their hands on me, or when I get my hands on them. Kind of less is more. And I really thought that managing, to your point, like you just mentioned, has kind of become a lost, underappreciated art in the industry. I think that it's something that has kind of fallen by the wayside and has been dismissed by a lot of people as an unnecessary accessory piece to the show that can be done without. And it really it gives me an incredible feeling when I go out there and people just aren't expecting to be as entertained by what I bring to the table. And it's kind of one of those things that until you give it to them, they don't know that the show wouldn't feel complete without it. That like I do offer something different, and it's something unique that stands out that people, kind of, again, not to regurgitate, but would dismiss as an accessory piece to a match or to a show. And I really pride myself on trying to bring that thing back.
Yeah, definitely. When I was talking to Nick and Ryan last week about having you on, I mentioned like what's his style, and I compared you to a hybrid of Bobby Heenan meets MJF in a way. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but that's just like how I see it. Like, do you style your managerial skills off anyone in particular? Like who's been your motivation or influence?
Yeah, I would say that Heenan's definitely one I've gotten. I've gotten some combination of Heenan, Cornette, and Heyman a lot over the years. I'd say initially when I first got started managing, it was very Paul Heyman. I had a totally different presentation at first. My first year managing, I was wearing kind of more regular business suits. I didn't have the flashy stuff just yet. I had to kind of add things organically over time, and not kind of force the over the top flashiness right off the rip. And I'm really glad that it unfolded the way it did, because I think it would have come off as phony otherwise. But yeah, initially, I definitely looked to Heyman as an inspiration. It's particularly because I got my start managing Wrecking Ball Legursky. He was the first guy that I was with. So with that kind of manager monster dynamic, it was really easy to draw like a Heyman Lesnar comparison. But I'd like to think that I kind of tried to carve my own way after that. And really, like particularly for character inspirations, I try to look outside of wrestling. One thing that's always stuck out to me is crazy sports rants, whether it's by coaches or by commentators, talk show hosts like First Take, and things like, because that honestly, it's like, as somebody who really wanted to get into sports casting originally, my friends and I growing up, we always loved when the coaches would go into rant mode in those post-game interviews. And I always like tried to think of myself as a coach slash player agent. I guess like if, looking at wrestling like I would other sports, like, okay, like what really think about it. What use would a wrestler, a professional athlete have for associating with me? Like what role do I legitimately serve to somebody like that? And then you look at, okay, how do these people, what's the over the top reaction to an occurrence in a wrestling match if we're comparing this to sports? And that's something that I always kind of, keep in mind when, I think about like promos, whether it's pre or post match, if you will. And then also when you talk about the gimmicky aspect of it, the money stuff, Dave Ramsey, Chris Hogan, but specifically Chris Hogan, who I was like a religious follower of his YouTube series for quite some time and captivated by that man's charisma. And I really just, and that was where I really kind of discovered how much like I feel like got in touch with the character internally, realizing that it became fully real to me, that I really do love money. Like I actually am infatuated with this stuff in real life. And I'm like always checking my numbers, always checking my investments on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis. And, thinking and just having all this terminology spinning in my head 24/7, like, financial freedom, portfolios, investment, like all this stuff, really just makes it flow so naturally to where I don't need to think about like, okay, it's time to be the money guy. It's like, this is just me cranked up to 11.
I love it. I love it. Now, you mentioned how you were paired with Wrecking Ball Legursky. You've been paired with too many people for me to keep track of. Mike Perna, the Graysons, Thrill Ride, Channing Thomas, just to name a few. How does that work? Like, do you like go up to do you go up to the rest and be like, hey, do you want a manager? Does, for example, Mike Lombardi with Northeast Wrestling, like, hey, I want to pair you with this guy. Like, how does that work?
It's been a combination of both. I would say that particularly in Northeast Wrestling, Mike Lombardi has had some really good foresight for how he has wanted to present me over the years. He's kind of always had a clear vision for how he kind of has wanted to see the trust fund manifest and transform over time. But there definitely have been instances, both in NEW and in other promotions, where I've gotten with particular talent and I've gone like, hey, like, we should be a thing. And then we pitch it and we get the green light. So Wrecking Ball was somebody I was put with. Brian Malonis was another guy that I was put with. But Thrill Ride, when I managed him for about a year and a half, that was a case of we got together. He was staging his comeback attempt to wrestling. And he was like, I got to come back with a fresh coat of paint. I want to do something completely different. I love what you're doing. I want you to manage me. And we were like, yeah, let's make this. Like, I would love to work with you. And we pitched it. We made it happen. And it's great when like both occurrences and like, or both methods have been so successful, because you like as a talent in wrestling, it's like when you talk about pitching things, pitching storylines, pitching matches, it's like, you're only gonna get so many chances. And it's like, if you're right, and it gets over and it clicks, then you look like a genius. And then if you get it wrong, then it's that's one of those things where a promoter is then more apt to tell you, okay, you're talent, leave the creative stuff to me. I know what I'm doing. But it really, when it's a collaborative process and you have that engagement between talent and promoter slash booker slash matchmaker, I mean, you really think about it like an actor-director relationship. If the director trusts the actor to ad lib and they knock it out of the park, it's just going to make the end result that much better. So I've been fortunate to have gone down both routes.
Do you have any specific people in the trust fund that you've had over the years that, just stand out, like those runs above anybody else that just come to mind?
Man, I mean, I've been blessed to work with like some incredible talent over the years. I mean, it's like it probably sounds cliche, but like it almost kills me to like try to pick favorites just because I can't think of anybody that I didn't have an absolute blast with, because I feel like everybody is so unique. Everybody has had their own identity in the way that like that our interplay kind of unfolded. Now, there's certainly guys that I was with for longer periods of time than others. For example, when I was with Richard Holiday and Bear Country, that was something I was really excited about pursuing. I thought that was about as stacked of a lineup you could ask for when it comes to a stable. And I think that we were basically ready to dominate Northeast Wrestling. And then COVID happened. And then Bear Country ended up getting signed, which I mean, hey, I am so freaking stoked for those guys getting to do what they're doing in AEW. But it's just one of those things where like, I would have loved to have had more time with them. But hey, I mean, their career skyrocketed, and Holiday is absolutely, crushing it as well. So I was with them for only a few months. Wrecking Ball, I mean, to this day, like, we're still working together, like in opposition, like very, very frequently. It's funny at this point, we basically opposed more than we've collabed, but he was, I mean, like my trial by fire, the first guy I ever managed. So, I mean, that's always going to be special to me. I think that Thrill Ride, I also got a huge kick out of because he did not need me to talk for him. And that was basically, it was a challenge to me for two reasons. Number one, I had to basically not just be that man, like show that like there's more value to a manager than just doing promos for guys that aren't so good on the mic. Yep. Or that shouldn't talk for whatever reason. The dynamic between me and Jimmy was very different. And at the same time, that guy is so freaking charismatic that it forced me to think differently and ad lib and try to up my game. Like standing there next to him when the camera was on made me want to cut better promos and has helped me develop. I think, because I look at, some of my promos from years ago and think about like, the progress I've made. I have to give him a lot of credit for that. Just him being there, being himself. And then that being said, I mean, I love the trust fund right now in NEW so much. Grayson's, Channing Thomas, Mike Verna. I think that we have a very like Heenan family dynamic right now where everybody has their own individual stories and they can come together when we need them to, but they're not necessarily the Spirit Squad, where like the whole here is I think like, greater than the sum of the parts in the sense that it's not about any one individual. This stable is not, Mike Verna and his buddies, not by any means. And I think that everybody has their own specific stories and there's just so many options when you think about on a show to show basis, how you can feature these guys, how you can present them. So, and just to like, on a personal level, I really love all four of them. So yeah, it's been nothing but an awesome roller coaster.
So you mentioned how Bear Country got signed with AEW. Now the next time that I'm going to be lucky enough to be in your grace, your presence there is going to be, what is it, October 2nd for Better Than You, when
Better Than You.
That's right. Will and Jack be there. But so obviously recently NEW, Northeast Wrestling, has been getting a lot of AEW talent to come on their shows. Like we had at WrestleFest, you backed Mike Verna against Eddie Kingston. And so is there anybody from AEW that you would qualify as trust fund to prove that you have your eye on?
Oh man, there's definitely a few. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned MJF earlier because he's certainly a guy that, people have kind of, that's not the first time that people have brought him up to me in terms of, us kind of, asking whether I've been influenced by him or whether I'd like to perhaps distribute some of my trust fund money his way. So he's certainly a guy that, I wouldn't mind lining his pockets, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking at the Elite, right? I mean, Omega, the Bucks, the newly debuted Adam Cole. I mean, those are some, those would be some pretty expensive acquisitions, but I'm always willing to stretch my wallet. Yeah, I mean, AEW, there's just like so many exciting things happening over there right now. You mentioned that weekend managing Mike Verna against Eddie Kingston. The very next day, I believe the show hasn't been posted online yet, but it's on its way. Six Flags Great Adventure, where we pulled, I think, in attendance of around the 3,000 range. Main event was the Hardy Family Office versus the Graysons and Channing Thomas with yours truly. So we've definitely, the trust fund's going to war with AEW, man. And October 2nd, there's going to be a lot of AEW guys in the building. And the trust fund, I mean, we're coming for it all. We're coming to make a statement. We're definitely not happy to be there. We're ready to take that next step and, show anybody who's paying attention that we're here to create some freaking chaos and make some noise at the expense of some of those AEW superstars.
Everyone keeps talking about Tony Khan versus Vince McMahon. I think the real battle here is Tony Khan's stock portfolio versus the trust fund stock portfolio. That's what we really need to see.
Oh man, if we were to pool our money together though, just imagine. I mean, we might be able to buy an entire country.
You could actually make the XFL functional, maybe, but that's a stretch, but
that's Dwayne. That's the Rock's.
That's right. Yes, now. He does have that. I'm hoping
that guy's got a trust fund of his own. Let me tell you.
That's who you really need to pull in. That's who you really need to pull in.
Yeah, right.
But so what is it like with all these AEW guys that come into Northeast Wrestling? I mean, obviously I'm not going to look into, taking spots away, but what do you guys, obviously there's something I'm assuming you guys can learn from when they do come in. Is there anything, that you take in from those moments? Like when you did go up against Eddie Kingston or Mike Verna went against Kingston, but obviously you were in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a mix of a lot of different feelings because for a lot of the guys in the locker room, there's AEW, I mean, the roster is expanding like crazy, and there's such a diverse collection of talent there to where in some cases it's like guys, let's look at that weekend in August, right? In some cases we've got guys like Matt Hardy coming into the locker room who there's some people in Northeast Wrestling that have known him for a number of years because of all the NEW events that he's participated in. Then there's other people that look at Matt Hardy he's in AEW right now, but there's the feeling of, I used to watch you on TV, the Hardy Boys back in the day, yada, yada, yada. And then there's a guy like Eddie Kingston, who a lot of people, again, might be more familiar with because their paths crossed with him on the independent scene before he got signed to AEW. So I think that there's definitely a level of a lot of comfortability among these guys, particularly the ones that everybody has known from putting their time in on the independent scene, because that's the great thing about AEW is that they're rewarding all these really awesome guys from the independent scene they've been this talented all along. And finally the world's getting to see what they can do. You look at Kenny Omega as the AEW world champion. I remember, 10 years ago when people were like, my gosh, have you seen this guy's matches? This guy's as good as anything you could see on TV anywhere in the world. And now, he's every single week on TNT. So it really just goes to show hard work does pay off. The right people will ultimately notice. Everybody was excited to work with these guys, but just as excited for what's next and to work and to keep working hard to find out the answer to that question.
Definitely. And also with all the AEW guys coming in at Better Than You, the real New Japan IWGP champion Will Ospreay is going to be there. So hopefully, we can get him on board and we can make the trust fund international then.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, you talk about a potential asset right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd have to brush up on my Japanese a little bit, but I mean, could you imagine Will Ospreay and the trust fund? The sun truly would never set on the trust fund empire.
I would be all for that.
I've already got t-shirt designs in mind for that guy. Hey, I mean, the match was just announced, him versus Rocky Romero. If he needs a little extra help in his corner, he knows who to call.
I think he'll be okay versus Rocky. I think if anybody needs help, I think it's going to be Rocky Romero that needs help. So, but no, that will definitely be a great match. Does the trust fund have a match yet for Better Than You? Has that been announced yet?
It has not been announced yet.
Okay.
We are looking to get some answers on that really soon. Today, as of recording, this is Thursday, September the 8th, and 9th, right?
Yep.
9th? Yeah, it's the 9th. Yep. And well, listen, we're all going to be there. The complete trust fund is going to be in the building. I'm talking about Mike Verna, Channing Thomas, the Amazing Graysons. We're there to make a 7-figure statement. So matches have not been announced yet, but rest assured, we're gonna be doing something substantial. That's for sure.
And who knows, by the time this airs, because we're filming this on a Thursday, by the time this airs, it'll be after homecoming. So by now, you could have the NEW world title in the trust fund. By the
This
time
is true.
So hopefully, fingers crossed for that. But let me just say, in a room that is going to have Will Ospreay, MJF, I forget all the other meet and greets that they've announced for Better Than You. I will be making a beeline for the trust fund table as soon as I get in to the PAL. So,
all right, glad to hear it.
You need to spend a little trust fund on there. We need to expand those walls just a little bit, but you know.
That's it.
But I'm very excited for that. But you mentioned the t-shirt ideas, so I'm going to give you the floor to plug away your Pro Wrestling Tee store, social media, and all that good stuff.
That's right. Be sure to visit my Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/Jared Silberkleit Trust Fund, all one word, super long. And follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jaredtalksloud, Facebook.com/Jaredtalksloud. And as you just mentioned, Northeast Wrestling, well, this is going to air after Homecoming in Bethany, Connecticut. But our next event is going to be the aforementioned Better Than You in Danbury, Connecticut on Saturday, October the 2nd. And we've got a bunch more shows coming to Connecticut throughout the remainder of 2021. So be sure to go to northeastwrestling.com for the information on all of those. Invictus Pro Wrestling, I'm going to be appearing for them in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey on September 25th. Standalone Pro Wrestling in Lanoka Harbor, New Jersey on October 9th. The schedule's filling up like crazy, so just follow me up on social for news on wherever I'm going to be next, because most weekends it's safe bet that I'm going to be somewhere. So yeah, be sure to follow me for all the news.
Perfect. Well, Jared, I appreciate your time for proving my innocence that I did not run over Nick in the aforementioned jalopy of a car that I own.
Exactly.
No, but
that thing couldn't even make it out of the driveway.
Barely. I mean, the check engine light did come on, and they all thought I did it, but I didn't. I earned this crown fair and square.
You had to get the neighbor kids to push it up the hill.
Pretty much.
Yep.
It's on its last legs. But yes. So Jared, I appreciate you for coming on. Check out Jared on Pro Wrestling Tees, Northeast Wrestling, and all that good stuff. And now back to you nerds in the studio. I told you I was innocent, and my interview with Jared Silberkleit proves it. So thank you, Jared, for coming on the Wrestling Nerd broadcast. The check is in the mail. Please wait a few days before you cash it. Otherwise, it's going to bounce like a basketball. Yeah.
Interesting. With this new information, Spaceman George thinks that maybe you didn't run me over. I mean, run Nick over. I'm Spaceman George. But then maybe, I wonder who did it then. Maybe it was Ron.
Oh, Ryan.
The founding father, Nick Carpenter, gave me purpose by starting the group. I mean, I love the guy. Let me confer with my associates here real quick. Someone even who had something to gain from this, no one has really brought it up. Harold, our commissioner, who pointed the spotlight. Now that I think of it, he's been pretty dead set on keeping the finger away from him. So
that's pretty true. I mean, everyone thought that I was the only one that had something to gain. Let's keep in mind, who stripped Nick of the crown? Who vacated it? It wasn't me. I won this thing fair and square. Harold is the one. He has to be the one. He's stripped Nick of the crown so that he had one less opponent to go through. It's that simple. He wanted it back. He wanted the crown. Shook my hand. I can't believe that. I got to go get some Purell and wash my hands now. But before any of us go, what you, the viewing audience, need to go do is go to prowrestlingtees.com, where you can get fantastic nerd merch like the shirt I'm wearing, the hat right here, the shirt behind Ryan, who may or may not be guilty of running over Nick Possibly. We're not sure, but we'll let him stay for now. You can also go check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/WNRDB, where you get to join our Facebook chat there for only $3 a month. At the $6 level, you can be on videos with us. At $9 a month in the Dave Cave here, you get to get a signed autograph 8x10. You could win that. One lucky fan will get that each month. And of course, make sure you like us on all the platforms of social media. You want to like us on Facebook. You want to like us, follow us on Twitter at WNRDB. And of course, right here, YouTube, where you're watching this show. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, tell everybody about the great Wrestling Nerd broadcast. Because guess what, folks? It's more entertaining than anything you're going to watch it on Monday night on the USA Network. I wonder what that could mean. So yes, go check out all the social media stuff. Buy the merchandise on Pro Wrestling Tees. Pledge to us on Patreon, and look both ways before crossing the street, because otherwise you could wind up without a crown. But that's not going to be me, because I'm never losing this thing, and I have proved my innocence. And Harold is guilty. It could be Harold. It could be Ryan, but we will find out within the coming weeks. I guarantee you that we are going to figure out who ran down Nick. So until next time, until we find out who did it, on behalf of myself, the King, co-king with that fraudulent Harold the puppet, on behalf of Spaceman George, the Big Crossman, the Micropolitan Scholar, Ryan Crossing, and of course our guest this week, Trust Fund Benefactor Jared Silberkleit. Don't forget to tell your mother you love her every day, because like Kevin Durant said, Mom, you're the real MVP. Good night, everyone. I've got my eyes on you, Harold, and God bless America.
Tom says hi.